Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson.
I will not let him win. He needs to be held accountable.
I think a lot of people are probably in on Deshaun Watson after he is not indicted by the grand jury.
I come forward now so that Deshaun Watson does not assault another woman.
By the way, Deshaun Watson has proclaimed his innocence.
We have more breaking news out of the NFL where Deshaun Watson will not face criminal charges over accusations ranging from sexual assault to sexual harassment.
I come forward now in the hopes that no other human being will assault another in the future.
The trade comes after a Texas grand jury declined to indict him on criminal charges stemming from lawsuits filed by 22 different women.
I've handled cases like this before. We won't be deterred.
Follow the money. $230 million in fully guaranteed money, 80 more than the richest guarantee ever given.
At the end of the day, we're talking about football. Let's not forget, we're talking about football. What we should be talking about is human dignity and the way women are treated.
Here is how everything shapes out. The Browns get a new franchise quarterback in Watson and a 5th-round pick. In return, the Texans get 5 draft picks.
I find the whole thing really gross.
The Deshaun Watson news over the weekend made many fans' stomachs turn. It showed the power one league has with, hand in hand, the power of indifference and the lack of care if an athlete is simply good enough. The trade was large, as we know. The headlines of $230 million guaranteed was insanely large and eye-popping as well. Watson hasn't played since the 2020 season after being accused of SA and SM. Recently, he was cleared of criminal charges related to the latter against him last week by a grand jury in Harris County, Texas. Watson, though, still faces 22 active civil suits accusing him of SA and SM, but the grand jury's decision not to prosecute him eliminated one barrier for the teams that were considering a deal.
I'm seeking justice not just on behalf of myself, but for all survivors.
The Athletic wrote of the 22 active civil suits, the allegations against Watson are serious. We warn you of the graphic nature of these reports. Multiple women, the suits allege, Watson potentially used his status as a prominent football player to book massage therapists and used this format to accelerate deviant sexual acts on them. None of this should be glossed over, but teams were more than happy to offer a bevy of trade packages in return for Watson's services. Even if Watson 26 avoids a civil trial and settles those cases by paying his accusers, cutting a deal so they'll keep quiet, common practice when wealthy, powerful men face a cavalcade of horrible accusations, few will forget. A quick note, while the grand jury met, Watson sat for separate depositions in 2 of the lawsuits in the offices of his lawyer. During those depositions, Watson invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and declined to answer questions.
I am a survivor of assault and harassment. Deshaun Watson is my assaulter and my harasser.
This is Ashley Solis, one of the 22 women who have filed a lawsuit against Watson. SI's journalist wrote, one thing is clear, warnings about Watson had been percolating in the Houston massage therapy community for some time. Some were mundane. He was a last-minute booker. Do not expect a tip. Others were far more troubling. 2 LMTs, or licensed massage therapists, told Sports Illustrated they were warned last year by others in their profession about Watson's inappropriate conduct, including his making sexually explicit motions on the table or insisting on using a small towel that would inadequately cover his private parts, rather than the standard massage draping. One industry vet says she talked to Watson about his conduct after an appointment she set up in 2019, the one detailed to SI in March by a woman that they called Mary, who has not filed the lawsuit. After that appointment, the vet therapist said in a text that only one therapist hasn't complained about Watson.
Deshaun Watson assaulted and harassed me on March 30th, 2020, in my own home, doing what I love most, massage therapy.
Which brings us to his attorney, Rusty Hardin, seen here. Hardin has represented Adrian Peterson when he was alleged to have used a switch on his child. He would avoid jail time, pay a $4,000 fine, and be handed 80 hours of community service. He defended Roger Clemens in the star baseball player's perjury trial. Clemens was found not guilty. Weirdly, it brings us to Jimmy Haslam, owner of the Cleveland Browns. In 2013, the FBI raided the headquarters of Flying Pilot J, the truck stop business owned by, you guessed it, Haslam himself, along with his brother, Bill. Haslam is the CEO of Flying Pilot J, and on their website holds the title of chairman of the board. With this title, the truck stop company saw 17 former employees plead guilty and or face conviction in a fraud scheme worth more than $50 million. Haslam said he had nothing to do with it and did not have any knowledge of what went on. Grantland, RIP, wrote at the time, basically, it came down to Flying Pilot J skimming rebates on diesel fuel purchases. Allegedly, Haslam and his cohorts used a common technique called jacking the discount, in which national gas station chains sign up trucking companies to refill exclusively at their rest stops, with the truckers receiving rebates in return. However, when it comes time to fulfill those rebates, the folks in charge of the gas station chain provide an incomplete payment, especially to smaller and unsophisticated customers for whom the discounts were calculated manually, allegedly. This supposedly had been going on for years at Pilot Flying J, which is no stranger to allegations of corruption. For his part, Haslam immediately denied any wrongdoing and then proceeded to cackle maniacally, fire a random subordinate, and return to watching practice footage of Brandon Whedon stumbling over himself. In the end, Hart & Co. never charged Jimmy Haslam in this case, meaning he had more time to waste first-round picks, we suppose. A weird angle, I will admit, but one you should know in understanding the key players in this entire story. Watson, according to Harden, gets at least 2 to 3 massages per week, including in the offseason, amounting to as many as 120 to 150 per year. There's nothing unusual about that number in itself, but the quantity of different therapists Watson appears to have used, as well as the lack of experience of some that he hired, and the massage techniques he requested, according to the civil suits, stand out as different from the experience shared by his NFL colleagues. One person with close ties to the Texans says a member of the team's medical staff, worried about increased risk of injury to the franchise quarterback, was concerned last year when they were told Watson was seeking out therapists on Instagram. This story, though, is more complicated than the binary matter of innocence or guilt. There is the enormous power imbalance in a star athlete's every interaction intersecting with the vulnerability of a role performed in the hidden corners of the sports world, the often misunderstood nature of what constitutes consent, and the difference between what is inappropriate and what crosses a line legally, all of which play a role in how 22 women and Deshaun Watson arrived at this point. On condition of anonymity, one NFC defensive back said, "I don't know guys who use 22 different masseuses, as in trust in the therapist's abilities is a key criteria for NFL players." The NFC DB said in his 6-year NFL career, which spans 2 cities, he has worked with a total of 4 massage therapists. One LMT, who also spoke with SI on the condition of anonymity, told the outlet in the fall of 2019 he purposely removed the towel covering him and told her she can touch his private parts, which she ignored. He allegedly thrusted his pelvis into the air after developing an erection. She also noticed what she believed to be pre-EJ on his stomach. There were reported concerns about Watson's conduct following their appointment. SI verified a November 2019 text about Watson, which read, "Whether the creepy stuff is his intention or not, he does it every time," adding the parenthetical, "only one therapist hasn't complained." The Cleveland Browns proved it may not matter in the long run by making this move to acquire his services. The National Football League could point to their investigation and interviews with Watson's accusers. Their tactics left many baffled. Ashley Solis told SI that NFL investigators asked her what she was wearing when she worked with Watson, which honestly really pissed me off, she said. In her lawsuits, Solis described incidents of SM by Watson, including him putting his privates in her hand. Another accuser, Lauren Baxley, told SI she thought the NFL investigators were patronizing and victim blaming in their line of questioning. She said her interviews with the Houston Police Department was very respectful and trauma informed. Solis says their approach left her worried my words were going to be used against me. Baxley said of HPD, "They let me speak uninterrupted," whereas with Lisa Friel and the other NFL investigator, they would cut me off. They would question things. They would circle back. Baxley believes that they were trying to trip me up. They didn't, but they were really looking for the weaknesses that they thought they could exploit. Maybe the Browns will lean into their so-called due diligence prior to the trade, as any notable billion-dollar company would. In a statement, Team GM Andrew Berry said, "We have done extensive investigative, legal, and reference work over the past several months to provide us with the appropriate information needed to make an informed decision about pursuing him and moving forward with him as our quarterback." Seems great. until it's noted in a separate paragraph in the same article printed on ABC News that the Browns didn't provide specifics of their investigation. They also didn't speak to any of the 22 women who have filed civil lawsuits against Watson and accused him of SA and SM, according to their attorney. John Barr, longtime ESPN journalist, tweeted that Tony Busby, the lawyer who brought forth these cases against Deshaun Watson, told him the Browns, along with all other interested teams, did not reach out to him or his clients for information about Watson. Roger Goodell, the league commissioner, could have looked at all of the publicly known allegations and decided enough was enough. He could have sent a strong message by putting Watson on leave for violating the NFL's conduct policy, no matter what happens in the legal fight. Goodell hasn't done that. How can we be surprised by anything from a league that hardly covers itself in glory when it comes to standing up for the rights of women? The NFL allowed Antonio Brown to play for Tampa Bay even as he faced a series of accusations and lawsuits. The NFL stands idle even as one of its foundational teams, the Washington Commanders, is saddled with accounts of harassment from over a dozen women that even include team owner Dan Snyder. There are plenty of similar stories. By now, they are part of the NFL fabric. Currently, of every 1,000 cases of SA, the vast majority will go unreported. Of the 50 that lead to arrest, only 25 perpetrators will be incarcerated. These raw statistics show how allegedly Watson, like many others in these cases, operate and what unfortunately does or does not happen thereafter.